What if I told you that the Civil War was not solely about slavery, but a complex web of economic, political, and social issues? Intriguing, isn't it? Let's journey back in time to unearth the roots of the conflict. The Civil War was a product of a nation divided, sectional tensions simmering below the surface. On one hand, we had the northern states, industrial and progressive, advocating for states' rights and a centralized economy. Contrastingly, the southern states, agricultural and traditional, were staunch defenders of slavery, an institution they saw as vital for their economic survival. This fundamental disagreement over slavery, states' rights, and economic policies created a rift that only widened with time. The North and the South, two halves of the same country, found themselves on opposite sides of a chasm that seemed impossible to bridge. As we delve deeper into the history, it becomes clear that the war was not a sudden explosion but a slow burn that had been smoldering for years. The spark that ignited the war was the Confederate attack on Fort Sumter, a spark that would soon engulf the nation. On April 12, 1861, the tranquility of the early morning was shattered when the first cannonball hurled towards Fort Sumter, located in the harbor of Charleston, South Carolina. This marked the beginning of hostilities between the Northern Union and the Southern Confederacy. The Confederates, determined to establish their independence, initiated the attack. The Union forces inside the fort, led by Major Robert Anderson, were vastly outnumbered, but they held their ground. For 34 grueling hours, cannonballs filled the air and shook the fort. Finally, on April 13th, Major Anderson agreed to evacuate, and the Confederates claimed victory. The Fort Sumter attack was more than just a military confrontation. It symbolized the collapse of political compromise and the failure of peaceful resolution. The first shots had been fired, and there would be no turning back. Two nations under one flag, each with a different vision for the future of the United States. On the one side, you had the Union, led by the venerable President Abraham Lincoln. His goal? To preserve the United States in its entirety, keeping the nation united and preventing secession. His vision was of a country bound together no matter the challenges it faced. On the other side stood the Confederacy, guided by President Jefferson Davis. Their aim was to establish an independent nation based on the preservation of slavery. They sought to break away, to form a new country that upheld their own economic and societal ideals. So here we had two leaders, two visions, and one country caught in the middle. The stage was set for a conflict that would shape the course of history. A house divided against itself cannot stand, and so the nation plunged into war. 1863, a year that would forever change the course of the war and the nation. This marked the year of President Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, a decisive stride towards abolition. Issued on the first day of the year, this proclamation declared that all slaves in Confederate-held territories were to be set free. This was not merely a humanitarian gesture, but a strategic masterstroke. By making the abolition of slavery a central war goal, Lincoln transformed the conflict into a fight for human freedom, bolstering the Union cause and undermining the Confederacy's social and economic foundations. Yet the Emancipation Proclamation was more than a piece of paper. It breathed life into the hopes of millions of enslaved people. It was a beacon of freedom that inspired many to escape their bonds and join the Union Army, adding fresh strength to its ranks. The proclamation also resonated beyond American shores, discouraging European powers from supporting the Confederacy, a regime now clearly identified with the preservation of slavery. But the year 1863 had another crucial turning point in store: the Battle of Gettysburg. Fought from the 1st to the 3rd of July, this clash in Pennsylvania was as bloody as it was decisive. The Union forces, commanded by General George Meade, faced off against General Robert E. Lee's Confederate Army. The battle raged for 3 grueling days, but when the smoke cleared, the Union had emerged victorious. This was more than a military triumph. It was a symbolic victory, halting Lee's invasion of the North and signaling a shift in momentum. The Battle of Gettysburg, like the Emancipation Proclamation, became a pivot around which the fate of the war, and indeed the nation, turned. Together they marked a turning point, signaling that the Union struggle was not just for preservation, but transformation, a struggle for a nation free of the scourge of slavery. With the Emancipation Proclamation and the Union victory at Gettysburg, the tide of war began to turn. Every war must eventually come to an end, but the scars it leaves behind can last for generations. The bitter strife of the Civil War reached its conclusion at the Appomattox Courthouse. On April 9, 1865, General Robert E. Lee surrendered to General Ulysses S. Grant. This marked the end of the Confederate Army's ability to continue fighting. The Union had preserved the United States, but the road to healing the nation was long and fraught with challenges. 5 days after the war ended, a tragedy struck the nation. President Abraham Lincoln, a beacon of hope and unity, was assassinated by John Wilkes Booth. This devastating event shocked the nation, already weary from the horrors of war. Lincoln's death marked the loss of a leader dedicated to the restoration of the Union and the rights of the formerly enslaved. Following Lincoln's death, the nation entered what came to be known as the Reconstruction era, which lasted from 1865 to 1877. This period was marked by efforts to rebuild the southern states and integrate formerly enslaved individuals into society. However, the path to civil rights and citizenship was not straightforward. The Reconstruction era saw significant advancements, including the passing of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, which abolished slavery, granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and guaranteed the right to vote regardless of race or previous condition of servitude. However, these advancements were met with fierce resistance, and many formerly enslaved individuals faced discrimination and violence. The aftermath of the Civil War was a testament to the resilience of a nation torn apart. The war had ended, but the journey to healing the scars of division and hatred was just beginning. As we look back on this period, we're reminded of the strength of the human spirit, the fight for justice, and the enduring quest for a more perfect union. The war was over, but the struggle for a united nation was just beginning. The Civil War, a conflict that shaped the destiny of a nation and continues to influence it even today. The reverberations of this war were felt not just in the immediate aftermath, but continue to shape the American landscape. The abolition of slavery, a monumental achievement in its own right, was a direct result of this conflict. The Emancipation Proclamation, issued by President Lincoln in 1863, marked a significant turning point not only in the war, but also in the country's moral compass. This decree set in motion a path towards equality, a journey that continues even today. The Civil War also solidified the Union. The idea of secession, which the Southern states had so ardently pursued, was put to rest. The United States, as we know it today, remained intact, preserving the ideals of democracy and unity. But the war was not without its scars. The social and economic changes it brought about were profound. The South, once a thriving hub of agricultural prosperity, was left in ruins. The Reconstruction period that followed was a time of significant change, as the Southern states grappled with the integration of formerly enslaved individuals into society, a process that was fraught with challenges and resistance. The legacy of the Civil War also extends to the realm of civil rights. The struggle for equality and justice for all citizens, regardless of color or creed, has its roots in this conflict. While the war ended physical bondage, the fight against systemic oppression and discrimination continued, paving the way for the civil rights movement of the 20th century. And yet, despite the deep wounds and complex issues left in its wake, the Civil War stands as a testament to the resilience and spirit of the American people. It serves as a stark reminder of the price of freedom and the sacrifices made to uphold the principles upon which this nation was founded. The Civil War remains a pivotal chapter in our nation's history, a testament to the price of freedom and the enduring spirit of the American people. And so we come to the end of our journey through the Civil War. We've traveled from its roots, deeply entangled in sectional tensions over slavery, states' rights, and economic disparities, to the spark at Fort Sumpter that ignited a conflict between the Union and Confederacy. We've seen the pivotal role of President Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation and the turning tide at Gettysburg. We've witnessed the war's end at Appomattox Courthouse and the assassination of President Lincoln that shocked the nation. And we've explored the tumultuous era of Reconstruction, as the nation grappled with civil rights, citizenship, and integration of formerly enslaved individuals into society. The Civil War left indelible marks on our nation, shaping social, political, and economic structures. It's more than a mere chapter in a history book. It's a narrative of resilience, of change, of a nation grappling with its identity. History is not just about the past, it's about understanding our present and shaping our future. And in the story of the Civil War, we find lessons that resonate even today.